Misa, welcome back again. Always a pleasure. I'm really enjoying tracking your progress on this. You may not realize it, but you do have this huge amount of potential that is getting seen as things unfold, and it's really fun to watch. So I was thinking about last session. We were doing the doubt column. We were starting to notice that most of your doubt lies with level 3 doubt, which remember is the doubts about yourself and whether you can move forward with things well in this regard. And I was saying to you, the solution to level 3 doubt tends to fall in the power column. So this is the session where we're going to do the power column. I wanted to start, though, just to ask if you have any questions about the power column. You know a fair amount about it. You took the seminars. You're in the membership groups. So you really, I think you know basically what it is. But I'm just checking in with you about it.
I feel like as a concept, I understand. I think maybe how to implement it and how to utilize it, I think maybe are more so what my questions might be. I feel like just conceptually, it makes sense.
Right. Okay. So just as a review, though, the power column is your relationship with you, whether it's feeling good or not. And look, I can pretty much guarantee you, anybody who comes to see me, or really almost anybody in life, doesn't feel great in their power column. It's just not the way it works until we work at it. But as we work at it, we really can get there. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to break down how we work in the power column. I have a one video that outlines what is the work of the power column. And it's really two different things. One, we create the core narrative, which, just as a reminder, that is the central essence of you in your suffering self. Meaning, there's lots of aspects of you, but what's the main way you really suffered in this life and struggled? We identify that, we identify what that did to you, and then we identify what are you going to do about it in a more general sense. We'll get more specific later with the action steps. But the first part of the power column is to create that core narrative and start measuring the individual moments of your life against that core narrative. Am I going into the buzzsaw of the suffering again, or am I actually operating in a way that's different in this moment? So that's one of the tasks. Okay? The second task is, am I in power with myself, with others, and with my symptoms at every given moment? And if I'm not, what adjustment am I going to make? And that's it. Those are the central things we do in the power column. I'm going to take you through it, though, today. That sound good?
Yeah, sounds great.
Okay. So I have to ask you this, and I apologize because I sometimes can't remember what has been said where, because I do a lot of talking and a lot of listening these days. I remember what you said, but just not sure when things were said. Have you worked on your core narrative before? I'm not recalling what you ended up doing when you were in the seminar or in the membership groups.
I did a little bit. Yeah, I feel like we came up with a couple of sentences, and like I think it was like 3 sentences that we were structuring together. And so I vaguely remember, and I remember coming up with a couple of things.
All right, so we are going to build your core narrative. As a reminder, this is 3 sentences. The first sentence is, how did you suffer? What's the major theme or two that covers the main suffering? Now remember, with me, I suffered in all kinds of different ways, but the way I try to think about it is, if you take the emotions column themes and you had to describe them in 1 or 2 mega themes, that's what this sentence is. Mm-hmm. Okay? So we did the emotions column episode 2 sessions ago. Let's use those themes to try to make it into one giant mega theme or 2 that we can get into one sentence.
Yeah.
What sums you up in your suffering?
I think when I think about like the things that I've struggled with the most, or have stopped me the most, is this like sense of powerlessness that I have. And I think that comes from this worthlessness feeling.
So I'm taking notes as usual, because I know that can be
thank
helpful.
you. Okay. I appreciate that. That's really helpful, actually.
Good. Okay, so keep going with that.
So ultimately, I feel that the environment that I was brought up in really tried really hard to take away my ability to think for myself. And then that left me in this place where I now feel like I'm powerless. Like I don't have any choice in the matter. Like, and along with that, that's like coupled with I think shame, trauma.
Okay. All right. So far what I have is there's the powerless theme, there's the environment taking away your ability to think for yourself, or at least trying to. There's the idea of worthlessness and shame. We're definitely on the right track. And by the way, you will know we're on the right track if it hits an emotional chord.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, is not to say that if it doesn't hit the emotional chord, we're on the wrong track. That may be that you just don't have access to the emotions. But if you do feel it, we're on the right track. Is this feeling right so far?
Yeah, no, definitely. Those seem to be ultimately, I think, the biggest overwhelming themes that I've identified so far.
Okay. Now, as I build this with people, I like to get clarity on what causes what, because we want this sentence to be very punchy, very accurate, very straight to the heart. So you said powerlessness and worthlessness. And I know we got to worthlessness in part during the seminar. I remember that moment. But I wanted to ask, do you think that you feel powerless because you feel worthless? Or do you think it's the other way around, that you feel worthless because you feel powerless?
Wow. I never thought about it that way. I don't know, but so I know that power is something that I really just identified. Worthlessness is something that I feel that I've connected to a long time ago, since I was a child.
Okay.
But like power, I feel like I never realized that I was powerless until recently, until I started learning about some of these things. All of a sudden now I'm like, what do you mean power? Like, I thought that was a bad thing. I feel like from my upbringing, I always was told that, anything that had to do with power seeking or anything like that was just a negative. So we just stay away from that. So when I first heard about like teaching children about like their personal power, I was so confused. I was like, what? Oh, I didn't realize that could be used in a sentence in a positive way.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming that
Well,
it made me feel powerless, but I didn't realize that. So that's not really, I think that's a new concept that I've identified recently.
I think that sounds right. So what that means is the worthlessness is actually, in some ways, the more central theme is worthlessness and shame, leading to powerlessness. I would even say the powerlessness might be something that we put in the second sentence, because the second sentence is, what impact did it have on you?
Yeah.
Does that ring true to you?
Yes, that makes sense.
Okay, so sentence 2 is where I'm going to put powerlessness. See, that's the thing. The core narrative is organizing. It's an organizing principle that takes all of the emotion columns themes, mashes it into one main idea. That's like an emotional mantra that you can hold on to and keep comparing your moments to. How am I doing this? So any moment where you're feeling worthless, we know that needs to be combated very, very strongly. Very strongly. That's part of the work of the power column. We'll get to that in a second, but here's what I have so far. I want us to, by the way, change words, to change ideas. I want to bring in words if something's been left out, and I want to take out things if it doesn't feel totally accurate.
Okay.
But we can always tweak this as we go. I just want to get it in as best form as we can. I have this. The way I was raised made me feel worthless, not special, and full of shame, because my environment was trying to take away my ability to think for myself. Okay, there's something after that. I don't know what. Let me back up before we even get there, though. And I can see the emotions hitting, so I know I'm onto the right thing. I said the way I was raised. Now, we could make that even more powerful. Is this the messages I got from my parents? The more specific it is, the more powerful the core narrative is.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I think that's definitely my parents do. And I think I used to always blame the religion, but well, my parents pretty much are the ones that raised us in that religion. So,
and they always had the choice, right? I'm not saying it to judge them. I'm just saying to be more fiercely in your corner. I want to get to that. So the messages I got from my parents, is it and the rest of your family, or is it mainly your parents?
I think it all kind of stems from my parents, but of course, my siblings reinforce that, and I think even more so, right? Because we are raised by our siblings. They're who I'm around more so than even our parents.
Okay, but I'm going to put that in sentence 2. That was an outgrowth of something that happened. Does that make sense?
Yeah, not really.
Okay. All right. So what I'm thinking though is sentence 1 is the origin of things. Sentence 2 is then what happened from that point forward.
I see. Yeah.
So that's why I think the siblings will fit more in sentence 2. You'll see that in a second. But
okay.
I have here the messages I got from my parents. I'm going to say through the lens of the cult I grew up in, because that's a pretty powerful idea that captures the pain of what you experienced. Many people didn't experience that, so I like the specificity of it. It brings out the emotion. The messages I got from my parents through the lens of the cult I grew up in made me feel worthless. Does not special fit? Is that important? I said that word, so.
I don't relate to the not special only because, again, I think it's also a thing that I was taught against. Like, okay. No one's special. Like.
So I'm gonna take that out because it's not central enough. It made you feel worthless and full of shame. Are there other words that you feel like we need to get in here, though?
I can't think of anything immediately. Yeah.
Did you feel hopeless? Or trapped?
I think definitely felt hopeless, but I don't think I ever connected to that because I didn't know any better.
Okay. Yep.
I think like now I see that it definitely was happening, but I never connected to that growing up at the very least.
Did you feel connected to feeling trapped?
Oh yeah, definitely felt trapped. Like.
Okay, so would you say if I said the messages I got from my parents through the lens of the cult I grew up in made me feel worthless, trapped, and full of shame, does that capture the essence?
Yeah.
Am I missing anything?
I think that's pretty strong.
Okay, I want to add one potential word. This might sound surprising to you because it's so similar to worthless, but the word devalued or invalidated is coming to mind because they're not exactly the same. Does it belong? Or do you feel like it's already covered in worthless?
It definitely, that is definitely something I've thought about more recently as well. Invalidated, like I feel like, yeah, I never had space to express and I never felt heard. So I think that definitely is something we've even talked about. So invalidated definitely makes sense.
Okay, I'm going to kick it though to the second sentence because if it came later in your life, it's not as central to how you felt always. It is something that led to how you felt later. And it's something you're piecing together now. We can always go back and put it in sentence 1 if it's important enough. But I think we have the first sentence. So let me read it back to you. See if this really grabs it. The messages I got from my parents through the lens of the cult I grew up in made me feel worthless, trapped, and full of shame because my environment tried to take away my ability to think for myself, and I never had the opportunity to expand beyond that. I know you have since, but I mean then. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I guess I would say as a kid, I didn't have the chance to expand. As a kid, okay? All right, now we're going to talk about what did that do to you? How did it impact you? Now, this is all the different things. We've got powerlessness. So I would say this left me feeling powerless. Did you struggle to process your emotions because of this? Is that something that you would attribute to this?
Yeah, that's definitely one of the things that I'm realizing that I
right. I mean, we noted that in the emotions column work. So, this left me feeling powerless, unable to process my emotions, at times hopeless. Is that accurate?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Okay. At
Um,
times or a lot of the time or all
I
of the
think
time?
pretty much that was my existence.
Yeah.
Or that's
Okay, so
been
then
my,
I'm just going to say hopeless. I'm not even going
yes,
to qualify it. What about feeling invalid?
yes.
Invalid in many life circumstances or all?
Um, I think pretty much across the board. Yeah,
This is pretty tough. Ouch. Um, and this was reinforced by my siblings. Would you say it's been reinforced, in your friendships, in your career, in your marriage? Where would you say that?
it was definitely reinforced like in all of my surrounding while growing up, while I was in that community. And I think that once I started to kind of venture out of that community, then I started to be able to tell a difference that there was something like wrong, that there was. So I think, yeah, like when I got married, there was a like my wife went through very similar type of things. So some of the things were reinforced, but I also saw some major differences that I'm like, oh wait, things aren't supposed to be like this, and that's what started waking me up to things.
So now I'm just based on the notes that I made and you just said, I'm going to read the second sentence of how this impacted you. This left me feeling powerless, unable to process my emotions, hopeless, invalid across the board in life circumstances. I'm going to say feeling invalid because I think that is a more accurate statement. And this was reinforced by my siblings and has also limited me in my career and relationships as I felt different, isolated, or wrong.
Yeah.
Does that capture it? Is there anything I'm
Yeah.
leaving out?
Yeah. That I feel like the only thing that I would have probably worded different was I just felt blocked. Like I couldn't somehow get to the thing that I was trying to do, whatever it was, whether it was a small project that I was trying to get off the ground, or was me trying to understand how to fix or how to resolve conflict, or it didn't matter what thing it was. I felt like there was always some kind of block, and it was like invisible. I couldn't see it. I couldn't connect to it. So.
Okay. I'm going to read it to you now with that in. And I altered it a little bit. This was reinforced by my siblings and left me feeling powerless, unable to process my emotions, hopeless, feeling invalid across the board in life circumstances, and has limited me in my career and relationships as I felt different, isolated, wrong, and blocked in any effort to make progress or grow.
Yeah.
We got it?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. So we've got a really good core narrative going that you're going to be able to utilize. And you're going to be able to shift and polish this, by the way. I just want to get the basic notes down so that you can look at it, play with the words, take out things, add things. This is kind of like a lump of clay that we give you and we start molding it. But then after the session, you can go back and look at this. But this is going to be useful to look at in individual moments, and I'm going to show you how in a minute. The next thing is, though, to establish the third sentence, which is what are you going to do differently? This is really what's the new message you're going to send to yourself, or the new ways that you might behave or even just think that are going to be different than the message you got. And you may need my help with this. This is part of why people come to see me. But let's have you take a stab at it first.
Okay. So what I'm going to do different, like so far, what I've connected to with all of this, as for the time that I've been looking at this, is that I need new information. I need to pretty much get out of the cycles that I'm in. And I don't get out of the cycles that I'm in unless I introduce new information into my system. And then it seems to me like it's going to require repetition, practice, vigilant, like exercise. And I mean, that seems to be what's making sense, that over the time of like, the more that I identify these things and the more that I'm able to kind of zero in on what the actual trigger is, the more that I'll be able to practice not allowing that to like spiral me into the natural tendency that I have. And then I'll be able to start altering or like deviating from that and going into a new direction. That's what I've got so far.
So I took what you said and I created a sentence. Okay, I'm going to read it to you. But I want you to think about what's missing or what feels right or what jumps out at you. I am going to value new, powerful, and accurate information to change my worldview, and I will go after ferociously the gains I want to make to honor who I am and what I need to live a life that is true to me in ways my past would never have allowed.
Wow. I said that?
Well, you and I said it together. You know?
Okay, great.
Listen, yes, you did say that. You know, your symptoms said it. Your words have said it in the past. I'm just good at synthesizing these things.
I think like what I'm identifying with a lot of this is that anything that I look at, I seem to like overcomplicate it and make it really convoluted. And I've needed help to just like simplify it and get to the actual point and just keep the things that are actually valuable, because those are the things that are going to make the biggest difference.
Okay, I'm making a note of this because I want to add this. Oh, this is good. Okay, hold on a second. Here's what I said. Okay. I'm going to read the sentence again. The beginning is the same thing. I am going to value new, powerful, and accurate information to change my worldview, and I will go after ferociously the gains I want to make to honor who I am and what I need to live a life that is true to me in ways my past would never have allowed, including keeping clarity in mind to make sure I don't get lost in unnecessary complications.
Yeah, that's really powerful.
It's good stuff, man. And really, I did get it from you. I'm good at synthesizing these things and seeing where it all goes and knowing how it plays out, but this is you. I mean, nothing I said in here isn't you. This is the story of you. And that's what the core narrative is. It is the story of you. Mm-hmm. I know you have other stories too, but this is the story of your suffering and where it's going to go. Mm-hmm. All right? So now I'm going to talk a little bit about how do you use this, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm interested in.
Okay, so when you're in given moments in your life, you're going to find yourself feeling powerful or not powerful. A huge part of the power column is assessing, am I in power or not? With myself, with others, or with my symptoms. Mm-hmm. So let's say you're sitting in a meeting, and the way people are talking about things, you're feeling like you don't have a place. You don't know why you're there. Maybe you don't like what you're doing, or you want it to be different in some way, or you want to have more of a voice. Do you hear how all of those things, they fit with this core narrative? They're all, I'm in a situation again where actually, we may need to add this somewhere. Did you feel silenced?
I definitely do. I not silence. I just feel like I can never really express what's really going on inside.
Okay, but not having a voice.
Yeah, definitely not having a voice.
So I'm going to add that actually to the first sentence. Remember, I will send this to you. Basically, you can walk through your life and assess, am I in power or not at any given moment? And it's actually very simple. Remember, we're talking about simplicity and not overcomplicating. Because you're a very smart guy, even if it might make you bashful for me to say, but you're a very smart guy, and you also, you do have a tendency to look at all sides, which is a great quality to have, but it gets used against you here. So one of the action steps in the power column or the emotions column is to use black and white thinking to dip into something that's much more simple. Like, are you feeling empowered or not? It's just, do you feel good or not? It's that simple. It is not at all more complicated than that. It can be more complicated when we look at why, but don't overcomplicate it. You're going to look at, do I feel powerful or not? Mm-hmm. Let's take this moment right now. Do you feel powerful right
now? Wow. I do. I feel good. That's as much as I can come up with. I think powerful sounds so still, I think just the association with that word is still like a little bit rough for me, but I feel good about what we've done and I feel heard, which makes me feel good. I feel valued. I feel like we've connected to some really deep things that I've been trying to reach somehow, but it was really difficult for me to do it by myself.
Okay.
So I feel all of those things, but I think I'm still struggling a little bit with powerful.
So here's what I'm going to sum this up in a different way. I think what this moment is, first of all, if you're feeling good, there is some power there. Mm-hmm. You're feeling empowered. It may be that you're feeling empowered in part because I'm here with you and I'm helping you see this, but I think another part of it is, you've been making gains. You're starting to see this more clearly. Mm-hmm. You are becoming more powerful. That part, I think, feels fully powerful. Then there's a way in which you're not feeling fully powerful, which is you don't feel yet, and I wouldn't expect you would, but you don't feel yet that you understand this fully. You know what you're going to do about it. You don't need anybody else. Now, remember, I'm not saying it's bad to need somebody. But I love the idea that you can also get to a place where at times you won't need anybody. That's power right there. When you don't need anybody. That doesn't mean you don't want anybody. It doesn't mean you're not connected to anybody. It doesn't even mean you don't have needs in your interactions with them. Mm-hmm. It just means that there is a part of you that is on your own journey. I did this video once about the power of aloneness. And that is about connecting to the fact that your story is your story alone. Nobody else gets to tell you what's right. Nobody. Me included. That's powerful. And to live that way, we're going to start to look at how can you live in alignment with yourself. So when I said, are you in power in this moment? I would say that the parts that felt powerful are fully aligned with you. They feel good.
Yeah.
Like, it feels good to feel like you know what's going on. You're making progress. You are having a clearer picture of things. But then the part that didn't feel powerful was, but I don't really fully know everything. Or maybe I don't know if it's okay to be powerful. Mm-hmm. Or I don't feel powerful enough to go make more power, to keep expanding. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It feels a little shaky. Like, I feel like, wow, we managed to get through this, but like, I don't know that I can get through this like the way we just did, right? So that part feels a little bit daunting.
Okay, but I'm going to use the part that you don't feel powerful in to show you how this core narrative then applies. What would you say to that part of yourself that doesn't feel powerful enough there? How would you use this core narrative, especially sentence 3? What are you going to do here? I'm going to read it back to you. I'm going to value new, powerful, and accurate information to change my worldview, and I will go after ferociously the gains I want to make to honor who I am and what I need to live a life that is true to me in ways my past would never have allowed, including keeping clarity in mind to make sure I don't get lost in unnecessary complications. How does that apply to this moment where the power doesn't work? And you don't have to have an answer yet, but I want you just to sit back and think about that a little bit. Like, what's an adjustment that you could make in this moment to say to yourself about the unpowerful part? What's the powerful step here?
I think, I don't know, but it seems to me that even just the realization that I'm here and I feel like this is the farthest or the closest I have gotten to feeling good. This is, it's like I've never really seeked out this kind of help or any kind of help, to be honest. And having done that, it has gotten me to this place. So to me, I feel like I'm on a different trajectory than I've ever been before. So continuing to go down this path, I think will lead to more and more sustainable, powerful moments.
Okay, so but do you see how what you're saying to yourself right there gives you a very hopeful and actually powerful message?
Yeah.
You're only going to get stronger.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is just the beginning. That's the great thing about the power column. The power column, in a way, is an awakening. It's like, oh, wow, this is totally different. Okay, I'm headed for a big change in things.
Yeah.
You are. You're just at the start. By the way, I added a little bit to the final sentence because I think this is incredibly important for you, knowing what I know about you. So I said, I'm going to fast forward to the middle. I will go after ferociously the gains I want to make to honor who I am, including keeping clarity in mind to make sure I don't get lost in unnecessary complications. And I deserve help doing this when I need it.
Yeah, I feel that for sure.
That's pretty huge because I think one of the ways that you have not felt powerful is that you have felt that to need help is to be weak or to have something wrong with you. That is wrong. That's incorrect. You deserve all the help you need. So one powerful thing that connects to this core narrative, especially now that I got that in there, you'll be able to look back and be like, oh, that's right. I deserve help. I don't have to know it all on my own. In fact, I need to add that too. I think you felt like you needed to know it all on your own.
Yeah, I think I keep going back to that. Like, oh, if I keep practicing, I'm not going to need anybody. So I'm still trying to get to that place somehow when I don't ever have to get to that place.
So I'm going to add that to your first sentence. And feeling that I need to do it all on my own. Not need to. Have to. Have no choice. So, okay, we've got a lot of good information in here, but it's all centralized information. Remember you talked about simplifying, right? The core narrative simplifies. When you're looking at a moment in your life, you're either living in accordance with the way this core narrative was, the tough stuff, or the way you now want it to make it. So you line up your moments and compare it to this. That's one of the tasks of the power column. The other one we were kind of doing also. They're similar, but they're just different ways of getting at the same problem. And that is to assess if you feel powerful in relation to yourself, others, and the symptoms. Now, when I said that you deserve help, what did that do for your power? Are you aware of that? How would you describe it? Because that was a moment. That was a moment. I want to assess it in terms of power. Did you feel more or less powerful in relation to yourself when I said that?
It made me feel emotions, but I'm not sure what they were.
So I'm going to give you my translation of it, but you're going to need to think about this and see whether it makes sense. I think the power that you felt with you went up because I think I was giving you permission that you have been longing for. And I think you felt, he's right. I can take this. I don't know if that's true, but that's how it read to me.
So I think maybe the question that I had inside, not realizing, is maybe confusion. Like, is it okay for me to need help and still feel powerful, I guess?
Okay, well, what would be the powerful stance? The powerful stance always feels good. So
Yes,
how would you make it feel
okay.
good?
Yeah,
Yeah,
then it's definitely okay.
Basically, it's not just is it okay, but hell yes, it's okay. Of course, everybody needs help.
Yeah.
I deserve help. That's awesome. You do deserve help. You haven't gotten nearly enough of it. And I know I've said this to you before. I've gotten angry on your behalf. Remember, I've talked about that? You have not had the message sent to you that you deserve help. Now, let's jump all the way back to the beginning of the core narrative. You were made to feel worthless. And I'm telling you, you deserve help. That's the opposite. You're worth everything.
Yeah.
I have a statement that I say to people, and I say it about myself too. I say, you are gold. That's the way you should live your life in the power column. You shouldn't let anybody mess with that idea. Anybody messes with the idea that you are gold, and they are wrong and bad. I'm being totally clear about that.
Mm-hmm.
And you could live your whole life like that. You'll have your moments where you don't feel great, but I say live in the power column. This is what I mean. Find the powerful statement, the powerful action you can take so that you are living a life where you feel that you are gold.
Makes sense.
Can you feel it at all? Can you feel that you actually are? That I'm not just saying that to you?
I feel like it's possible to feel that.
That's a start. That's a start. I wouldn't, if we could do all the power column work in one session, then yeah, we'd get you to be like, you're right. Great. I am gold, and now I'm going to go live that way.
Yeah.
But the fact that you now see it as possible means your power has just gone up.
Yeah.
And we did that by saying, what's the powerful move here? If you're feeling a moment doesn't include I am gold, you're out of power. So then the question becomes, how do I get back in power? And it can go in all kinds of different directions. I could be having an interaction with somebody that doesn't feel good, and I could say to myself, how do I return myself to power? Do I need to say something to this person? Do I need to not say something to this person? Do I need to get out of this situation? Do I need to change the situation? Do I need to change how I'm relating to myself in the situation?
I see. It makes sense. So it's almost like moment to moment awareness will cause me to ask this question and find a whole bunch of different routes to get back to this place.
Bingo. You nailed it. So the core narrative kind of it organizes, what are we talking about? What's the theme that we're talking about? But the action step, really, the key component to the power column work is exactly what you just said. I don't even want to rephrase it. It was perfect. Now, is that clicking? Does it feel like it?
Yeah. Okay. So I think the work here for me is finding as many different roads that lead to that place.
Yes.
And I currently maybe, have a couple or will develop 1, 2. And then as I practice this more and more, I will eventually develop a bunch of different ones so that no matter what situation I find myself in, I know how to get back to that place.
That's right. That's right. So like for me, part of my core narrative centers around feeling invalid and like I belong to no one. But it also has a key component of feeling silenced.
Mm.
So one of my power column action steps is essentially this. I'm never shutting up. Ever. For anybody. And I don't mean that in a bullying way. And I don't mean it in a bulldozing way over people who don't deserve to be bulldozed up. But I'll bulldoze somebody who deserves it. But I'm honoring me. I'm gold. Nobody's silencing me.
That makes sense.
Tell me where your mind is with that as you consider this.
I feel like, it just makes so much sense. And I'm just excited to start finding all these paths to get to this place and to almost like start recording what this feels like. Because the more that I understand what this feels like, the more I can come back to this place.
Yeah.
Because right now, I think like the biggest doubt for me was like, well, I don't even know what things feel like, but more and more I'm connecting to things. I'm like, oh, okay, I know what that feels like now. Oh, okay, now I know what that feels like now. And I'm doing a whole lot of that. But now I'm excited about, well, knowing what this feels like, because this, that of all things, is one of the most important things that I need to learn to feel and to really familiarize myself with what that feels like.
Yeah. Yeah. So the way I think about these consultations is I help people to understand what each column is and what it can do. And I think we've done that with each of the three columns. We looked at the emotions column. We helped you to see that trauma was getting in the way of kind of viewing some things. Then we started to see, actually, you know an awful lot more than you think. You have those themes, and you can connect to them. Then we got to the doubt column, and you had already done a lot of doubt column work, but you were growing in your ability to be more certain, more specific about things, to not overcomplicate things, and kind of call a spade, more cut and dry there, which can be very helpful. And now here we have, I think, the skill that is going to serve you the best of all. This is why I say you dip into the emotions column when you need it, when you have an onset or an uptick in a symptom. Okay, let me process what's happening and move on from that.
Mm-hmm.
In the doubt column, you work to crush doubt because it's always trying to climb in the door somewhere. But you live in the power column. That is the place that I'm asking the questions most. Now that I'm recovered from the pain and all the suffering, right. I'm mostly asking the question, what's the way I can be powerful here? What do I need? And I'm not talking like, take over the world kind of thing. I'm just saying powerful within me, aligned with me, not ever betraying myself again, because I used to betray myself all the time.
So that to me is also the key here, because I'm identifying a whole bunch of these, past traumas that like we identify that I was getting, like I would get into this trauma state that basically stops me from being able to make sense of anything that I was trying to work on. And in identifying those things, it's helping me now. Okay, I know how to get through that so that I don't get stuck. So now I'm like actually getting results from things because I'm moving forward. So what you just said right now, sorry, I blanked out.
About living in the power column, or?
Yeah. More specifically, you said something that triggered.
Well, I was saying, you seemed to spring into action when I said, I'm always looking for what's the powerful move for me. How am I going to make sure that I don't betray myself?
Oh yeah.
Boom,
so
that's where it was. Yeah.
That's me too. Like it's like complete self-abandonment and betrayal, or like self-abuse, really. It's like, I think what I identified. And so I think that like I'm starting to learn that there's this like underlying trauma why some of these things might be hard to grasp at first for me. And it's because there's like these blocks that kind of just take over and I don't understand what's happening. So like for me, a couple of those things is, well, that, right? Like self-abuse is one of those things. And like shame is another one. So like shame is one thing that I kind of I know that I carry like deep sense of shame within me. So I'm having to go and like understand what that is. Like what is shame? What does that mean for me? Like, and how do I deal with that before I can go back to, this kind of work, because shame gets in the way of me doing this work.
It's interesting you said that, because when I was thinking about the core narrative when we wrote it, I don't know why I didn't think to go back this, but I guess it was an instinct to wait on this. But now I was thinking the one thing in the core narrative, and I added some things about tendency to abuse the self and betrayal. That's in there too. You're going to cultivate this, but I'm just putting the notes down.
Yeah.
The one part of the core narrative that I didn't feel as clear on and I want to make clearer is shame. What is the shame? And if we can't identify it today, that's okay. We might revisit it in the action step session next time.
Yeah.
Like a power column action step. But let's start anyway, since we have a couple minutes here. What is the shame? Can you get it articulated?
It gets like really difficult, but I think generally, or to simplify it, it's the idea that I let myself down, the idea that I got myself into this situation and I didn't know any better. So that, like, I guess I've been carrying that for a long time without ever realizing that, like, a 5-year-old shouldn't have known any better. And not, that makes sense logically, but that doesn't mean that I just released that and now it's gone from my body, right? So there's.
But see, the core narrative, especially the first and second sentences, they identify things. So in the first sentence, I said, the messages I got from my parents through the lens of the cult I grew up in made me feel worthless, trapped, and full of shame that I let myself down or caused the situation. So the more specific we get with this core narrative, even though it can end up being a long run-on sentence, like really massive sentence, as long as it's capturing things, you can always hone it down once the ideas are there. This is like a rough draft. But this allows you to be powerful in any given moment, because you can choose to say to yourself, no, I didn't cause any of this. I'm always struck by this, but did you see the movie Good Will Hunting?
Yeah, I think so.
You should go back and watch it now. After this work, it'll be a totally different thing. Because at one point, the therapist, obviously it's a fictional therapist, but this is the kind of therapist most people would want, except for when he choked the person. Not that part. But he did say, it's not your fault. Do you remember this scene? He kept saying over and over, it's not your fault.
Vaguely, yes.
It's not your fault. I always wished somebody would say that to me, and no one really did until much later in my life. They only started saying it to me once I started saying it to me. That was the power column move. I realized at some point I can be powerful without anybody else. I am gold. It is not my fault, and I don't care if everybody believes that it is. It's not. I didn't mean anything bad.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. So those are the things that I feel are like almost like this detours or like they sidetrack me a little bit from, like, I understand all these other things, but then there's this underlying thing that still kind of blocks me from fully being in this, like doing this work. I mean, there's so many things, I guess, like that are making more sense now, though.
Well, now you understand the 3 columns. Next time, we're going to get into the action steps. And one of the action steps is going to be to resolve exactly what you just said.
Oh, okay.
How do we get to that? What do I say to myself? What do I do? How do I think about it? Because action steps are often about how you think about it. So we are continuing to do very powerful work. your natural skills that you may not have even realized you have. You soak things up, you adapt, you understand things fast, but you also are gaining an ability to actually empathize with yourself and care about yourself and treat yourself like the gold that you are.
Thank you.
It's pretty amazing.
I really appreciate this. This is life-changing. So
well,
thank you so much.
Misa. Thank you for being so generous to share this with everybody as well. But this is just the beginning of your power. It's pretty cool. So we'll look forward to seeing where that goes, and I will see you next week, okay?
Okay, sounds good. Thank you so much, Dan.
All right, my pleasure. I do love the power column sessions, especially in a lot of ways. You know, it can be it's incredibly important to tackle the doubt, as you guys know. It is the central thing that we have to get to. But once we've got the columns established, then things can start to really take off. And the power column is where it happens. Ultimately, I want every single one of you to understand you actually are gold. You have to think about who you are and the fact that you tried so hard to live a good life. And now you get to start rewarding yourself for that and start honoring who you are, treating yourself well. You saw it starting to happen with Misa, and as I said, it is just the beginning. The power column is where things really start to get exciting. So we're going to check in with Misa next week and work on action steps, and I can't wait to get to it. If you haven't already, click subscribe, ring the bell for notifications, hit like if you like what you're hearing, and put your comments below, and we'll get back to you personally.